Breaking news, the Republicans seem to have found their counter to the Russia investigation, and it puts the FBI and the Democrats in the crosshairs. The memo they plan to release is just the setup for what they hope will be a mass conspiracy of wrongdoing at the highest levels of law enforcement, all an alleged plot by the enemies of President Trump. That's what they're selling. Tonight, I go one-on-one with Minority Leader Nancy Pelosi, who has seen this memo, and we have one of the Republicans who is sounding the alarm. Friends, it is time to get after it. I'm Chris Cuomo. Welcome to Primetime. All right, so here's what we know. In the last few hours, House Republicans voted to release a memo by Chairman Devin Nunes alleging FBI abuses and obtaining surveillance warrants based on classified information that the panel is not releasing. And in fact, classified information Nunes reportedly has not even reviewed. So, in effect, they're asking you to accept their conclusions without revealing the basis. Odd? Just wait. The panel, deeply divided along party lines, but the Republicans control. So they were also able to block a counter memo by Democrats. Now, just last week, the Justice Department warned that releasing the GOP memo without review would be, quote, extraordinarily reckless. Why? The obvious. It might expose sources and methods that could compromise U.S. intelligence work. Reportedly, the Republicans have since shown the memo to FBI Director Christopher Wray. And now it goes to the White House, where the president has 5 days to approve or deny the release. The top Democrat on the Intelligence Committee says Nunes, as I said, didn't read the information this memo is based on, the memo that bears his name. To the Democrats, this is proof that this is all about politics of the worst kind.
We had votes today to politicize the intelligence process, to prohibit the FBI and the Department of Justice from expressing their concerns to our committee and to the House, and to selectively release to the public only the majority's distorted memo without the full facts. A very sad day, I think, in the history of this committee. When you have a deeply flawed person in the Oval Office, that flaw can infect the whole of government, and today, tragically, it infected our committee.
Then there was another significant move and a related development, the sudden departure of FBI Deputy Director Andrew McCabe, a frequent target of criticism by President Trump. Tonight, sources tell CNN the FBI Director, Christopher Wray, hinted to staff in an email that an Inspector General report about the FBI's conduct during the 2016 election played a role in McCabe's abrupt departure. All of this on the eve of President Trump's first State of the Union speech that is billed as a call to unity. So let's take the breaking news one-on-one with the House Minority Leader, Democratic Congresswoman Nancy Pelosi of California. I heard you laughing there, Minority Leader. Why?
Well, because unity is, of course, our goal. That's what we strive for the American people, bipartisanship, transparency in our activities, and to do something that is unifying rather than not. And what the president is striving for unity, that's really a sad statement from there. But let's get back to this point. I'm very proud of Adam Schiff and our House Democrats for protecting the integrity of the intelligence community. This is a very big honor that the leader gives to the ranking member, that the speaker gives to the chairman, to be deputized to protect the intelligence for force protection of our troops, for fighting terrorism and the rest of that. Instead, Chairman Nunes has acted like a stooge with the speaker.
A stooge?
A stooge of the White House at the acquiescence or maybe the guidance of the Speaker of the House. This is not about one thing or not. This is about the integrity and the safety and our national security.
That's what he says too, though.
They have crossed from dangerously and recklessly dealing with intelligence to a cover-up of an investigation that they don't want the American people to see come to fruition. And that is most unfortunate. Now, I have probably longer standing than anybody in the history of the Congress on intelligence. I've served there as a member. I was a ranking member in my time there, and then as in the leadership as a member of the Gang of Eight. So I have had access to all of the intelligence, which Mr. Nunes could have access to, but has not.
So you've seen it.
I've seen it. I've seen not only the memo and the basis for the memo, but the underlying documents. And what they're putting forth is a total misrepresentation. It is false. And they're putting it out there as if it is factual, and then saying, we're going to show this to the American people, but we're not going to show the rebuttal to it by the Democrats. Now, the Democrats have said, rightfully, we shouldn't be putting anything out unless it has been reviewed and redacted by the intelligence, the appropriate
But they say
agency.
they don't want the DOJ to look at it because they are part of their concerns about how things were done during the campaign.
The DOJ is only one part of the intelligence community. The intelligence community is vast. It's the CIA, the DNI, the National Defense. Everybody has their element of it. And sources and methods must be protected. But not only that, I can't even reference some words that are in it because that would be a violation of the confidentiality, the classified nature.
Right.
So this, again, putting this aside in terms of tit for tat, which you seem to, well, with all due respect to you, is trying to make it look like Democrats versus, it isn't about that. It's about our national security, and our President of the United States is the Commander-in-Chief, and he should stop this immediately. He should stop.
You think he's not going to release the memo?
He says he's going to. He hasn't even probably seen it, but he's going to release it. In fact, he should be saying, if no release should ever happen without the agencies of the intelligence community reviewing and redacting from public review. Who's going to share intelligence with us if they think it's up to Nunes, not even reading the stuff and releasing?
You put a lot of this on Nunes, but that means you put it on Ryan.
That's right.
Because the speaker picked him. Do you
Absolutely.
blame Paul Ryan for what's going on?
I think that he has a major responsibility in what I call a cover-up of what they are doing. It's really very sad. But again, it's a cover-up. Also, it's a distraction. What really we are trying to do right now is keep government open. They have a problem with that because they're ineffective. And
you think they're doing this because they don't want the government to be open?
well, I think whatever they do is a distraction. So when you never know what's
But that's
coming
what
in.
they say. So help me understand this. I know you can't reveal classified
No,
information.
I
Though
won't.
I'm not going to push you on that, but I will push you on this one idea. It is hard. I have to believe it's hard for the American people to have faith that anybody in this city where we are right now is out for the truth and not out for politics. And I can understand why they want it all released, Congresswoman. I can understand why they want it all out because they say, you know what, we can't trust you guys. Let us read it. Let us figure it out. You can redact the names. You can make it safe enough for us to look at it because they say the same thing about you.
No.
That the Russia investigation, there's no collusion. You guys are pushing the ball to political advantage to stymie the president. And they talk about this memo like it should have been in the Raiders of the Lost Ark, this thing, that this is the holy grail of the truth about what was happening during the campaign. And it points the finger at the Democrats and the FBI.
Well, let me just say this. We're not going to become them, the Republicans, because they are totally irresponsible in this regard. We're talking about the intelligence community. We're not talking about some issue that we're having a fight about. We're talking about our national security. As I said, when I've been on that committee, I had been on that committee a long time and served as leader involved in those issues. And this isn't not to be politicized. This is about fact. It's about evidence, about data. It's not about making up a false memo based on a false premise that the chairman hasn't even read and then to put it out there.
I give you that he has. If he hasn't read it, that's a problem. We'll take that up
but how
with
how can you decide if you haven't read it that it should be revealed to the American people?
Fair point. But what I'm saying is this. Are you saying, without revealing anything that's confidential or
Right,
classified,
I
obviously.
I can't do that.
I get it. But you're saying that if the American people see this memo and they read it and they think about it, that they could not reasonably conclude
No,
that
you
there was
can't.
any problem with what happened during the election?
Of course not.
Well, then why are they so anxious to release it?
Because it's not even true. It's not even true. They have made up a memo that isn't even true, and they're lying to the American
So what are you going to do
people.
about it?
Well, we have put forth a memo, which we reluctantly did, but said don't put this out unless it is reviewed and redacted. That
Now
means
it won't
there's
be
a-
out when theirs is out.
Doesn't that tell you something? The Republicans say, we want the American people to see our memo, but we're voting against showing the American people the Democratic memo. But again, let's enlarge this issue. Let me not get engaged in this Republican-Democratic thing. This is about security or not. It's about people in our country who work so hard to protect the American people in the intelligence community, and to be frivolous with their identity or roads that can lead to them. About
You're saying that
countries.
you think it puts lives at stake if this
Well,
memo
I'm
comes
saying
out?
that intelligence that is necessary for other countries to share with us, why would they put it at the mercy of Dennis Nunes, who doesn't even read the memo, and say the American people should see it? And the American people, they have their own jobs to do. They're not there saying, now I'm going to redact a memo because I know what is true, I know what is false.
No, I'm saying you guys redact what you need to redact, but then let the American people decide.
But that's not the way intelligence works. That's not the way it works. It's not this isn't a subject about what's in the tax bill or what's not in the tax bill. This is a question of what is important to our national security to be secure. So, and again, let me take it to another subject, because they do these things as a distraction. It's totally irresponsible. There isn't one person in the intelligence community recognizing the sacrifice that our men and women in the intelligence community make for our country's security that would say this is not reckless.
Christopher Wray, the director of the FBI, obviously, recently selected by President Trump. He got the memo. He could have come out and said, this is reckless, don't release it.
Let me just say this with all due respect. You really don't know what you're talking about right now.
But did Christopher Wray look at it or no?
I can't say whether he did or not, but he did not. In order to redact, you have to have the people who know the
I'm not saying
specific
redact.
facts.
I'm saying if these concerns are so sharp and obvious.
Well, they've already said not to release it. They already said not to. The Justice Department already said it would be reckless to release it. You said that earlier in your
The
thing.
DOJ said it. We've been reporting it.
Department of
Absolutely.
Justice,
But now
yeah.
there's this word that is somewhat of a compromise.
Well, wait a minute. I want to tell you something. Let me just say this. The Republican Party has, as I said, crossed over to cover up. They're deadly afraid of the Russia investigation. We don't want the investigation to be anything but based on the law and the facts, and let the investigation proceed. That's the right thing to do for our country. We have to be respectful of law. We have to be respectful of intelligence.
Absolutely.
And the rest. And what they're doing is reckless in regard to both. But the fact is also that it is a distraction from the fact that they've passed a tax bill that gives 83% of the benefits to the top 1%. They'd like to distract from that. 86 million middle-class Americans will pay more in taxes. $1.5 trillion to now up to $2 trillion, including interest, will be added to the national debt. That they do give this gift to corporate America at the expense of our children's future. They don't want to talk about that. They don't want to talk about the fact that they have what they've done in terms of the president put forth a ridiculous memo on, well, I don't know if he put it forth or they leaked it, on infrastructure, which doesn't even go near what our country needs. They are doing bad things in terms of immigration and the rest. What they do is they give you a nugget. They say, here's what we're doing on immigration. Isn't that wonderful? While it looks so pretty, and while they do very unpretty things behind the scene. Same thing with tax bill. Isn't this a nice little thing we're giving you while we give
all right, I want to
all
take
these
on
bad
each of those things, but
behind.
hold on.
And same thing again with intelligence. We're going to show you a memo.
All right.
This is ridiculous.
All right, I hear you.
It's beyond
And
ridiculous.
I want to look at those other issues you just itemized
Yeah.
from the perspective of what Democrats could have done and did not do and should do now. However,
What would that be?
well, I'll get to it. I'll get to
Okay,
it. But
we'll
hold on a
get to
second.
it, but-
This is pretty urgent right now, and it's got
Yeah.
it's got us a little on edge. So if this memo, if the president says, "Okay, I say let the people decide," my guys seem that they're fine with it, and it comes out, what can you do to counter a narrative which they clearly believe is
they're
going to be very
irresponsible.
persuasive to people?
No.
So what do you do?
If you lie, have no allegiance to the truth, are totally disrespectful to your responsibility to the security of our country, you can persuade people of anything. It's happened before.
So how do you counter this?
Well, hopefully with the validation of outside sources and the rest. But the American people are working hard. They're taking care of their families. They're trying to make ends meet. They're not prepared to redact or dedact a memo
I
on
understand. I was
intelligence.
never suggesting they should. I'm
Well,
saying
then
when
they
they get
can't
this
make a
memo, they're going to read it and they're going to say, "Holy cow,
Yeah,
this was
but
happening."
But it's not true. But it's not true.
where are the facts? How do you make the case? Because otherwise, they're going to see this.
Because
They'll believe it.
if I were to tell you why it isn't true here, I would be taken up by the
I
ethics
get it, but
committee for
that
telling the truth
is the
about their memo.
catch-22 in this entire situation.
So they
which is
shouldn't
why
have
it's so
gone down that
frustrating
path.
to people.
They shouldn't have gone down that path. They're only going down this path to foil the Mueller investigation. They should let the facts and the law take it where it goes. No other place further than that. And that's what should be. They're so afraid of the truth. They're afraid of the truth. They're afraid of the truth in the Democratic memo. That's why they're not releasing it.
So why don't you put that out on the floor? As you know, I do not mean to tell you procedure. You know it better than I ever will. However, this is a relatively arcane mechanism that they're using right now to release this information.
It's not arcane. It's not even highly unusual. It's never been done before. There's this violation of the classified nature of intelligence.
So, fine, that's your description. What I'm saying is
that is a fact.
I get it. That's your description of this process. What I'm saying is you could go to the floor of the House, as you know, and you can read things. There is an immunity for speech and debate.
No,
you could read your memo.
Not on intelligence.
No, you don't reveal the classified intelligence, but you could read the substance of your memo that protects your sources and methods, but counters what's in this memo if you think you can.
No, the only thing that our members are allowed to see is what they go down to the Intelligence Committee and
so then that can't happen, you're saying?
No, it can't happen. And besides, in order to refute it, you'd have to tell the facts, and the facts are classified.
All right.
And we're not going to engage in what they're doing. But you know what? I want to tell you something. You're missing it. This is very big. This is very big in terms of what line they have crossed tonight. And it's shocking, really, but not surprising because they're desperate. And they're desperate because, look, they can't keep government open. They're on they go to the fifth. Now they're talking about their fifth continuing resolution because they're incompetent and they're ineffective. And all they have to do is sit down and say, let's come to terms on how we're going to fund the government. Let's come to terms on how we're going to protect.
And you're saying the Democrats are willing partners in that process?
Absolutely. We have been willing partners.
Because they say you're not.
No. Here's their problem. This dark cloud hangs over the Capitol. It's called their tax cut. It's taken us $2 trillion additional into debt. That makes them afraid of incurring any further debt, so they don't want to spend money on their domestic agenda. Now, what we're fighting for is money for opioids, more money for meeting the needs of our veterans, money for the Biblical Power to Cure, the National Institutes of Health, money for pensions, which are struggling in our country. In addition to that, appropriately dealing with the disaster assistance for Puerto Rico, Virgin Islands, and the other areas affected by the disasters and the hurricanes and the fires.
So then why did you back off the shutdown? If this is so important, why did the Democrats relent?
No, because the fact is they changed the subject. The fact is this is about money. And all they're doing is trying to increase the defense budget, which we believe in.
So why didn't you hold your ground and say, we're going to fight? We're going to fight for this.
Well,
it's so important.
We are fighting.
You relented on the shutdown.
No, we didn't relent. The fact is we think we have a better case to fight with government open than government shut. And we don't believe in shutting down government. They've shut it down 5 times now, including last weekend when they shut down government.
Why was that not on you guys? You control the votes?
No. They didn't have 50 votes in their own caucus, much less 60 votes.
Right, but they needed the Democrat votes.
They didn't have 50 votes in their own caucus. If we didn't even have the 60-vote majority, they would not have had the votes. But listen to what I'm saying to you. Opioids, it's a crisis throughout America. And they are saying, well, we want to spend more money on defense. We agree. Do you understand that the domestic budget, which they don't want to invest in, contains a third of it contains security, Homeland Security, Veterans Affairs, the State Department, anti-terrorism activities of the Justice Department are all contained in the domestic budget. 34% of the domestic budget is security. And they're saying we just want to increase defense, but we don't want to invest in home and domestic. And that's because their members don't want to increase the deficit for the debt further than
they're asking for a lot of money in your DACA immigration negotiation
$25 billion for a wall, right? The Mexicans were going to pay for it, right? Who believes that? But the fact is that we shouldn't have a wall and the Mexicans shouldn't pay for it. But we should have security at our border.
Whatever the context requires on the border.
North and south. We have in our recommendations what Then
why did Chuck Schumer say he'd give him the wall? Why was that ever on the table if you're so against it?
Well, he would give him part of the security on the border, some physical structure. But our proposal has what the Border Patrol said were their needs.
Right.
What their needs. And that their needs do not include a wall.
Do you think that it helped the chance of getting a deal done by describing their offer as making America white again?
Well, that's what they're doing. I could have been saying that a year ago, but the president said it. He said it when he talked about certain countries and how he characterized them. But what they want to do is not let any more people, you see with their proposal, cut in half legal immigration into our country. What they want to do is send people back. That's their real goal. That's what we fear most, is their domestic surveillance, their interior surveillance, internal surveillance, and also to look what they've done with the lottery, with the opportunity of visas that come from all different countries.
They say it's a security risk.
And look what they're doing with family unification, making up a fake name, chain. They like the word chain. That sends tremors through people in our...
Well, you read something into everything in terms of what they're doing.
Of course I do. I see them every day. So this is but I laugh. Mitch McConnell said, she shouldn't have said that. I didn't hear him say anything about the president saying anything about the foul language he used describing countries from which we receive many wonderful entrepreneurial people. You and I know, being Italian Americans, that immigration is the constant reinvigoration of America. People come with their family values to make the future better for their families, their hopes, their dreams, their optimism, their courage to make the future better. And that's what our founders intended, that every generation would take responsibility for the next generation to do better. And that's called the American dream. And these dreamers have inspired America. This should be so easy. If you want to talk about comprehensive...
It's not easy, though.
No,
do you think a deal's going to get done at all?
It has to. It has to. And so we'll stick with it until we can get a deal. But if they want to do comprehensive immigration, let's do that. But that takes time. The Senate already did it in a bipartisan way a few years ago, but the Speaker of the House would not bring it up on the floor.
It didn't get done.
It didn't get done. But for the dreamers, there's a commensurate amount of border security that is commensurate with the number of people who are protected. There's bipartisan support in the House and the Senate to get it done. Let's do what is unifying, what is bipartisan, which is transparent, instead of trying to sell a bill of goods on some of these things. And in the meantime, to be so afraid of the truth that they would degrade the whole process of intelligence by taking it to a different place. I call it a cover-up.
Nancy Pelosi, thank you for spending time with us tonight. I appreciate it.
Well,
all right. So up next, we're going to test the flip side of the argument. Republican Congressman Jim Jordan said